Today on the Big 6 in 60, Texas hits a game winner in the first four.
The Texas Longhorns escape NC State in the first four of the NCAA tournament.
The Broncos trade for Jaylen Waddle.
I tell you what, man, the whirlwind, the roller coaster of the last 24 hours has been so fun.
And the Eagles sign Hollywood Brown.
I just look at it as a more or less Jahan Dotson replacement, if anything.
This is the Big 6 in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big 6 in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Texas Longhorns and NC State Wolfpack played a great game in the first four of the NCAA tournament last night, with Tramon Mark hitting the game winner with a second to play for the Longhorns to move on. Brad Kellner recaps that win on Locked On Longhorns.
Wow. The Texas Longhorns escape NC State in the first four of the NCAA tournament. 68-66, the Longhorns get the job done. Tramon Mark, the game winner with 1.1 seconds left to break a tie. It's the fifth game winner of Tramon Mark's college career, and he's hit some big shots at the University of Texas. None bigger than that one. My goodness, what a roller coaster game that was. And the Longhorns had an 8-point lead with less than 2 minutes to go. This game was pretty close, but Texas played with the lead for most of the night. Felt like the Longhorns had finally done enough to distance themselves and put NC State away. And then the Wolfpack, give them credit. Look, Texas made some mistakes, and we'll get to some of those mistakes. The Longhorns need to work on their press break. There's no doubt about that. But NC State hit three of the craziest threes that you will ever see. Of course, it's March Madness for a reason. Crazy things happen in this tournament. And NC State, McNeil hits both of those corner threes where he's like fading away, and Jordan Pope's right in his face. And then Darian Williams hits a crazy step back three over Tramon Mark. Like, Texas was playing very good defense. They played great defense all night long, which is a miracle for this team. They were playing great defense on all three of those shots, yet NC State knocked them all down, and all of a sudden, we go from an 8-point lead in the final couple of minutes to it's a 2-point game. Then Daylen Swain somehow turns it over. NC State goes to the line. They make a free throw. They tie it. If they made both free throws, they would have had a lead, and it could have been game blouses. But Texas gets the ball. They've got basically the final possession of the game. And Tramon Mark, look, I'll be honest, I have been very critical of Tramon Mark over his Texas career. I was critical of the way he played early in this game tonight, and he shut me up. Two massive shots in the final minute, one of them to turn a 2-point game into a 4-point game before the comedy of errors that Texas had to keep giving NC State life, and then obviously the game winner in the final couple of seconds. 17 points for him, and again, none bigger than those final two. Wow, man, with some of the losses that Texas has had in this tournament in my lifetime, it felt like the way NC State was making shots and the way Texas was kind of imploding, that here we go again. There's about to be another one on the way. And I'll be honest, even after Tramon Mark made that shot, I was getting flashbacks to a certain game in a certain tournament that I don't want to say because we're all in a good mood, but unfortunately everybody knows what I'm talking about. I was still worried about a half-court shot going in with some of the tournament failures that this Texas basketball team has had in the last 2 decades or so. But thankfully, a risky block attempt by Daylen Swain. Dickie V thought it was a foul. We'll get to the TV broadcast a little bit later because, oh my goodness, that was a joke. There were a couple of dozen times where I thought about muting it, and I'm mad at myself for not muting it, or at least like syncing my television to the radio broadcast so we could listen to the great Craig Way instead of that. But risky attempt by Daylen Swain. It was all ball, a clear block. And hey, don't leave any doubt. Don't let that shot go up. If you could swat it away before it gets close, go ahead and do just that. My goodness, what a win for Texas basketball. And the Longhorns are moving on to take on BYU. I mentioned it earlier. What a game on defense for this Texas basketball team. Look, I don't think anyone saw 68-66 coming tonight. The first time these two teams met back at the Maui Invitational the day before Thanksgiving, this was a 102-97 game. I mean, defense was optional in that one. Both teams made everything that they shot. In this game, it was an offensive struggle. The defense deserves some credit. Obviously, the pressure of March, I think, maybe played a factor in this one, but a total 180 from what we saw in the first meeting between these two teams. But I'm looking at Texas basketball right now, y'all. The last time they gave up 66 points or less in a game, the win over Vanderbilt, 80-64. That game in Austin early in SEC play. That was the fourth conference game of the year for the Longhorns. That was a huge win for Texas, by the way. Vandy came into Austin ranked number 10 in the country. They were undefeated at the time. That was a long time ago. That's the last time Texas has held an opponent to 66 points or less. And again, without those Hail Mary shots that NC State made in the final 90 seconds or so, Texas could have held that team to the 50s. A really good defensive effort by the Longhorns tonight. They were aggressive. They were attacking. They were switching. And, man, I'll give those guys credit because, look, we've all been very critical of Texas on that end of the floor all season long, and rightfully so. I mean, Texas entered the night with the 13th ranked defense in the country, according to KenPom. The reason I'm not so sure is I just updated KenPom, and now the Longhorns are 95 in defensive efficiency. Still not great. I'm not here to tell you that that's good enough to make a deep run in the tournament, but the Longhorns jumped up somewhere close to 20 spots in terms of defensive efficiency just because of this game tonight and the way they shut down NC State. I mean, Van Allen Lubin, their big guy, that's a dude who averages 14 points per game. Texas held him to just 6 points on 2 of 6 shooting. He fouled out. He was a non-factor. Paul McNeil hit those crazy threes, but before then, I think he only had 5 points. Yeah, he ended with 11. So before those 2 prayer threes, he had 5 points. That's another guy who averages 14. Quadir Copeland, their point guard, who scored 28 against Texas in Maui. Texas held him to just 16. Now, outside of Darian Williams, who was a beast for Texas Tech last year, helped the Red Raiders get all the way to the Elite Eight. That's a hell of a tournament player, just a hell of a player in general. And that dude was the preseason ACC Player of the Year. Didn't have a great season, but outside of him, nobody really went off against this Texas team, and we've seen offenses a lot worse than NC State have way more success against the Longhorn defense, right? NC State was 20th in the country in offensive efficiency coming into tonight, and Texas made life very difficult for them all game long. It's credit to Sean Miller and this coaching staff for coming up with a really good game plan, but also credit to the guys for executing that game plan. How about Kendall Weaver? How about Kendall Weaver, y'all? And by the way, keep the comments coming, the questions coming. If you're tuned into the live stream, we'll definitely get to those here in a moment, but I don't want to go any further. We're already almost 8 minutes in, and I have not brought up Kendall Weaver's name. You know, he had 17 points in the first matchup between Texas and NC State, a season high by far for Kendall Weaver, and he didn't do anything against Ole Miss. I think he had 1 point in the Longhorns SEC tournament loss last Wednesday. I wasn't quite sure what type of impact, if any, he was going to have on this game. How about a double-double? 11 points, 10 rebounds, 4 offensive boards for Kendall Weaver. He was flying all over the place. Kendall Weaver was so good, he could make Dickie V and Charles Barkley actually talk about the Texas game. Those guys were talking about every other game and every other thing in the world. And then Kendall Weaver would make an amazing play, or he'd fly in for a rebound, or he'd block a shot or whatever. And then the guys were like, oh, this Kendall Weaver guy is really good. Maybe we should talk about the game that we're actually calling. That would have been nice. But Kendall Weaver, man, look, he's a senior. He is a senior. If Texas lost, that would have been his last game. And he did not want to go out like that. He played horribly against Ole Miss. He did not want another bad game. Obviously didn't want to lose. That is such a team-first guy who has meant so much to Texas basketball. He's been through a lot with coaching changes and all sorts of roster turnover during his few years in Austin. For him to have that game today was awesome, and he's going to be very important for Texas moving forward. They're going to need that same energy and fire on both ends of the floor if they are going to knock off BYU on Thursday. Oh, my God, it's so nice to talk about another game, isn't it? It is so nice to talk about another game. I remember last year, Texas losing in the first 4. I mean, it's such a long season, and the pain of this tournament is that you could be amazing in the regular season. Obviously, Texas last year wasn't. They were playing in the first 4. But if you have one bad night, it's over. Like 4 to 5 months of a regular season, if you just no-show on one night, then that's it. That's it. You got to wait 8 months to watch your team play again. And with college basketball nowadays, it ain't the same team that you saw the year before. It's so nice. I know it's only one day off in between games, but so nice to not be talking about a first 4 loss for the second consecutive year. And Kendall Weaver, obviously Tremont Marks, clutch shooting, huge. But Kendall Weaver, I think, is the biggest reason why Texas won this game tonight. The Longhorns did not get enough from Dalen Swain. I thought Modest Vokatitis was good. Again, foul problems for him. I'm so excited. I know a lot of Texas fans are like, I don't want to see Modest anymore. Get rid of this guy. I think that's crazy. We're talking about a true sophomore here who's already gotten so much better as this year has gone along. I can't wait to see what he does next year. Not that I'm ready to pull a plug on this season yet, but foul trouble, an issue for him. Still gave 15 points, did miss 5 free throws. If Texas lost this game, yes, we would have been talking about the inability to break the press and the incredibly untimely turnovers down the stretch. But the Longhorns missed 8 free throws. Like, if they would have lost this game, it would have been by 1 or 2 points. And, I'm looking right at the free throw numbers and seeing Texas shooting 21 of 29. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's where the game was lost right there. Modest missed 5. It wasn't just him, but he was the biggest offender at the free throw line. He's been a very good, especially for a guy his size, he has been a very good free throw shooter this year. He did not have it tonight. And then Dalen Swain. Man, Dalen Swain's obviously been the best player and the most valuable player on this team all year long, but he has disappeared as of late. He had a horrible game against Oklahoma, didn't do a ton against Ole Miss. Nobody really did. And then tonight, I mean, you see the 13 points, but 2 of 9 from the floor. He had 5 turnovers, bad misses on defense. Like, he was fumbling the ball around. He's the guy who had the super costly turnover in the final minute that gave NC State an opportunity to tie the game and take the lead at the free throw line. Like, you can get mad at Sean Miller for inbounding the ball in the corner or calling a play that inbounds the ball in the corner, but Dalen Swain had plenty of time to pass the ball or to dribble. Like, he just stood there frozen like a deer in the headlights, looking like somebody who's never played basketball before. He's like, what do I do? What do I do? And he just loses the ball out of bounds.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any kind of college hoops parlay you want. You want to pick a big underdog? You want to pick a huge favorite? There's plenty of options for you the next couple weeks. Then you apply that profit boost and instantly bump up your potential payout. Go safe. Go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style. Now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The Broncos made a big trade Tuesday, sending a first-rounder and other picks to the Dolphins to get receiver Jaylen Waddle. After Denver got Bo Nix, one of the fastest receivers in the league, Locked On Broncos gives their thoughts on the move.
We'll tell you why Cortland Sutton benefits the most from the Jaylen Waddle addition into the lineup. Plus, we'll navigate how the Broncos can work through Jaylen Waddle's contract in 2027 and 2028 with the larger cap hits that he is set to incur. But then we'll also kick things off by talking about how the Broncos got actually the sweet end of the deal here in the trade with the Miami Dolphins. On today's episode of the show, Sarah, I tell you what, man, the whirlwind, the roller coaster of the last 24 hours has been so fun. And I think we're seeing mixed reactions from Broncos country. I think, plain and simple, every fan should be thrilled about this move. I don't understand why there's skepticism, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The Broncos deal for Jaylen Waddle, when you really look at the meat and the potatoes of it, man, it's a sweet deal for them, actually.
It really is. I mean, yes, it costs a lot to get Jaylen Waddle, right? A first-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and then you get the fourth-round pick coming back. We know George Payton never makes a deal unless he's getting a little something back when it comes to draft capital, but certainly it's a sweet deal for the Denver Broncos to fill one of your best needs. And obviously you still have that draft capital to work with in a really sweet spot of this year's draft. And what a lot of people are saying is like kind of the meat, like you said, Cody, it's sort of the meat of the draft where you really can find value players in the second round, in the early fourth, so the Broncos, they still have that capital to work with, but it's all about Jaylen Waddle. It's not about what's left over in the NFL draft capital situation, right? It's all about getting a playmaker like Jaylen Waddle. And of course, it's not always unanimous, but I think for the most part, this is exactly what the fan base wanted. This is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Denver Broncos here in the 2026 offseason. You and I talked about it. If you believe that this is a Super Bowl caliber roster, go out and make impact additions. Impatience on my part, Cody, when it comes to, hey, the Broncos, hey, do something. We're kind of poking at the bear a little bit. Well, the bear came out of hibernation and absolutely went bananas and made this blockbuster trade. I don't think any contender in the NFL, I don't think any team in the NFL, even just with one addition, I think the Broncos made a bigger improvement, a more substantial improvement than anybody else, considering what they all brought back and now what they're adding to that mix.
Yeah, we'll talk about the wide receiver room and more importantly, how Courtland Sutton stands to benefit from the addition of Waddle later on here in today's show. But even going back to even the compensation here, you see a lot of people say, wow, they gave up too much for that. Folks, I think when you really boil it down to the fine details of this trade, yes, Denver gave up the first, the third, and the fourth. But here's what essentially happened. You're really giving up the 30th overall pick, right? Your first round pick. Jaylen Waddle is better than anything that you're going to get with that 30th overall pick. Yes, you give up the 30th overall pick in the third round. Okay, yeah, that's premium capital. Yeah, 100%. I understand that. But realistically, you also give up your fourth round pick, which was the 30th overall pick in the fourth round. But you really swap. Like the Broncos actually got the sweet end of the deal because they get the Dolphins' 11th overall pick in the fourth round. So instead of picking 30th in the fourth round, they're picking 11th. And they still have the 8th overall pick in the fourth round from the New Orleans Saints. So they have those two picks right there. And I will put money on it today, sir, that the Broncos will probably trade up into the back end of round 3 with those two picks or maybe one of those picks right there. They will be open for business for that. But essentially, the Broncos, they really gave up a first and a third for Jaylen Waddle, and you get a chance to maybe even move up into late round 3 because you get a little bit closer to that in the 2026 NFL draft. This is why the deal is sweet for Denver. Like, Miami has to eat over $125 million in dead cap this upcoming season, Sarah, which is unheard of. I looked at that statistic. I'm like, they got to hire the guy who's filling the Coke machines down the hallway in Miami to play cornerback or something. It's unbelievable what they have to go through, and Denver taking advantage. And I felt like the price on this one, it certainly was right.
It was. I mean, there was talks during last season, right, before the deadline that, hey, the Broncos might have interest in Jaylen Waddle and the price is just way too substantial, and rightfully so. I mean, we considered their situation last year, right? I mean, they had an interim general manager, Champ Kelly, working in place of Chris Greer, and the interim general manager is not going to make any decisions on big-time players on the roster that will affect whoever is getting that job in the future or affect it. That's an organizational from the top down. They're like, do not trade Jaylen Waddle, essentially, unless you get a king's ransom. And the Broncos weren't going to pay that during the season. Now you get an opportunity. It seems like a lot, but the price probably has gone down, Cody, from what the Dolphins were previously asking for. And you get an impact player who is going to be there during Bo Nix's formative years, maybe his most important year, right? Because Bo Nix is up for a contract extension after this season. So now you get a true, I want to say number one receiver, because I believe he is that, although he's been, sharing the target share in Miami with Tyreek Hill. I believe Jaylen Waddle is a true number one wide receiver, can do everything. And like you mentioned, it kind of feels like the Broncos are having their cake and eating it too, because they not only get Jaylen Waddle, but he's got a low cap hit this year, which we're going to talk more about that contract, and you get those draft picks. You moved up in the fourth round. So it's all setting up for the Broncos to be able to do exactly what they need to do to get this team past that point where, man, we felt like they're maybe just a playmaker away or whatever it is away. Well, now you've added that impact player, and he is exactly that.
Teams that are trying to win a Super Bowl now, they push the chips in. They don't wait for draft picks to try to say, oh, well, maybe we'll land somebody here. I look at the Los Angeles Rams and their approach. I look at the Denver Broncos and their approach this offseason. It tells me these are two teams who are serious about pushing their chips in. I mean, how many times, too? Because people are saying, well, the draft picks. I don't care about the draft picks. I'm all about forget them picks. If you know that you can get a quality player, a proven player already that you get with Jaylen Waddle. Dude has over 5,000 yards receiving through his first 5 years. Dude is an impact playmaker for you and can be a difference maker. If you don't believe me, make sure you check out the L22 stuff I posted in the Everydayer Club. But here's the thing, Sarah, the Broncos landed a guy that is going to excel against man coverage, zone coverage. He can beat guys in single high. He can beat zone coverage. I see it on the film, and it's very exciting stuff. I can't wait for Broncos country to dive a little bit deeper into that here. But it's all about pushing the chips in, right? And here's Denver could still draft guys in this year's upcoming draft, right? They're just going to be picking a little bit later. For example, I believe that their second-round pick is going to be 62nd overall. Isn't that close to the same spot that Nick Bonito was taken in the 2022 NFL draft? Like, Denver has proven that they're going to take some chances on some good players at that spot. But I think people forget Denver has a roster that is ready right now, Sarah. They have said that. Sean Payton has pounded the table and said this roster can win a Super Bowl. This is a piece that can absolutely get them there because he adds a dynamic to this offense that the Broncos simply don't possess.
And here's a couple of things to remember, too, when it comes to the draft capital and losing the 30th overall pick, not picking till number 62 overall. You're right. Nick Bonito was picked number 64 overall. Marvin Mims was picked number 63 overall. So the Broncos have found value there before, but the Broncos had 9 draft picks prior to this Jaylen Waddle trade. So now they have 7. Do we really think 9 rookies were making this roster, which had 71 players coming back already on this 90-man roster from last year's team? So you had 71 guys already who have been in the organization in some form or capacity, right? So 9 rookies, just realistically speaking, it's a little bit unrealistic. But also the other thing to remember, too, is the team's first-round pick last year barely played for the team. Like, Jahdae Barron is a good player, really good prospect, and somebody that the Broncos probably have really high hopes for internally, undoubtedly, but he didn't hardly play for that team last year. So you're not only talking about 9 rookies probably not making the team, the first round pick from last year's draft didn't really play a ton. And I don't know that you, like you said, you could not get a better player at pick number 30 overall than Jaylen Waddle. So now you've got more limited draft capital, maybe a bit more of a focused draft class, like you mentioned, could use those 4th rounders to move up, could use those 4th rounders in a future pick to get up into the 2nd round. Who knows what the Broncos would want to do there. But I just think that, look, the reality of this roster is that many rookies probably not making the team, certainly not all of them making an impact. And now you have a true impact player coming onto this roster, plus you have the ability to really take advantage of the best part of this draft, which is its depth, not its top-end talent. And I think that's where the Broncos, like you said, it's a sweet deal for them. They've addressed one of their biggest needs. Was there even a chance that they were going to take a receiver with one of their first 2 or 3 picks, Cody? Because we think that was the case, right? So if that's the case, why not Jaylen Waddle? Why not just make the trade? So I love it from all angles, all aspects, especially the bargain that he is on this year's salary cap.
And the Broncos have 10 picks in the 2027 NFL draft, and we'll factor in maybe a couple of more for comp picks for JFM, maybe PJ Locke here. So it could get a little sweeter. And what is arguably perceived right now early on as a better draft class than the 2026 draft class here. So maybe the Broncos are playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers here, Sarah.
The Eagles added to the wide receiver room by signing Hollywood Brown to the roster Tuesday. Locked On Eagles looks into the move.
It's a great day to be a wide receiver. At least you cost a lot in terms of picks if you're Jaylen Waddle, and don't cost all that much if you're Marquise Hollywood Brown. Coming to the Philadelphia Eagles just moments ago, Jeff McClain, Inquirer.com, putting it out there that the Philadelphia Eagles made the acquisition of Hollywood Brown. Louis, I know you just did a short for it here on Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. When it comes to Hollywood Brown coming to Philadelphia, I just look at it as a more or less Jahan Dotson replacement, if anything. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think this has anything to do with A.J. Brown. This is not a wide receiver 2 replacement, but I think he's the style of player that I want in the wide receiver 3 role. When you look at Jahan Dotson's just lack of targets, lack of volume in the offense the past couple of years, I don't think that's going to change this year at wide receiver 3. So I would rather have somebody like Hollywood Brown that can stretch the field vertically, that has that kind of speed where he can impact the game maybe on just a couple touches, because that's all he's going to get. So having that kind of like niche role of a home run hitter is kind of what I like in this spot. And he was solid last year, 49 catches in Kansas City, 587 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's a lot more than anything Dotson did in Philly. So it's a former first round pick with a 1-year deal, not a lot of money. I think it's a smart signing.
Harry, 1 year, $6.5 million for Marquise Brown.
Yeah, 1 year deal for this guy. I refuse to call him Hollywood because I'm out on Hollywood. And to me, he hasn't really lived up to the Hollywood nickname ever since he's been in the league. He came in with a lot of hype, and he's been okay. And that's what he'll probably be with the Eagles. He'll be okay. He'll be in that role of the 3 receiver. Like Louis said, he still has that home run capability with speed. And if Jalen Hurts chooses to look to his 3rd receiver a little bit more than he has in previous years, maybe he will make some big plays for this team. But it's really dependent upon whatever this new offense looks like and whether Jalen Hurts decides to look his way and trust him.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, right? Like if you're going to a team with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts and you're a stretch the field 3rd receiver, you got to look at it and go, I'm probably not going to get a lot of opportunity because he ain't going to go through a progression to get all the way to me. I'm not going to be featured a ton. And because if the quarterback eventually becomes under pressure, he's going to run, use his legs to get out. So I wonder why that would be an attractive destination for a guy like Brown, who comes in, as you said, I mean, sounds like one of those nicknames he gave himself at Oklahoma. Yeah. The whole Hollywood in Oklahoma. Yeah. Not really, brother. Come on, chill. And he hasn't lived up to the hype area as a first-round pick. But look, he does have pretty good numbers. 5 touchdowns last year is pretty impressive. You're talking about the position he plays. So maybe they need a little help in the red zone. Maybe he can bring a little bit of that in those situations. As far as Dotson, I mean, like I said, Dotson needs to remove Penn State from his resume as an alum. He just didn't do enough for me. Thought he was good in college, didn't do enough in the NFL. So it's kind of a swap out. Consequential, maybe, but we'll see.
Maybe the new offensive coordinator can scheme up different ways to get the ball in this guy's hands with all his speed. That maybe in a deep, the way Deebo Samuel might have used to get the ball. I don't know.
Like a rub on the outside, Harry.
Be creative.
Yeah, like a little rub route on the outside and have him some open field in front of him to use that burner speed. Right. Or go over the top every once in a while, for God's sake.
And Jalen Hurts is a great deep ball passer, right? So I feel like this is the kind of player you want in the offense, and you hope that if they do add more West Coast concepts with Sean Mannion running the attack, that he does go through his progressions more. Is that a projection? Probably. It's a big projection right now because he doesn't really do that. But if so, I think you might need this wide receiver role to upgrade. And the thing is too, if AJ Brown is gone and let's say you replace him with like a rookie, that might also heighten the importance of this spot. So I think it's an upgrade.
Think about it too, Louis. We have not gone through either of the last 2, 3, or 4 seasons without one of the receivers being out for multiple games.
That's a good point too, right?
I mean, that's the thing.
And if AJ's gone, like you're 1 injury away from being in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, and then here's the deal. Did you have faith in Dotson if you moved him into the Devontae Smith role that he could handle it? No. Do we have more faith in Hollywood Brown? I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
I would say.
Yeah. But we knew the other guy couldn't.
Correct.
So we're not repeating the same mistake.
Yeah. As of right now, you're running it back as an offense, and we'll get more into the Dallas Goedert deal and what that means. But the other side of things here is how how Marquise Brown affects AJ Brown. We've agreed. I think we've all go around the horn already and say it doesn't really impact. You're talking about a number 3 wide receiver at best.
Better not.
An upgrade, right? An upgrade from what you had last year in Jahan Dotson. Now the Jaylen Waddle deal is something that people can look at because after DJ Moore got dealt, for a lot more than people anticipated, you're now looking at another wide receiver who got dealt for a late first-round pick, which is exactly what we've been talking about here with the New England Patriots potentially parting ways with their late first-round pick for A.J. Brown if he, in fact, does get dealt. A first-round pick for Waddle, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick goes from the Denver Broncos to the Miami Dolphins for the services of Jaylen Waddle. And Harry, we've been talking about the flip-flops and all that. Does this help, or does this more solidify the idea that A.J. Brown will stay here in Philadelphia? When you look at the Jaylen Waddle deal, how does it impact your stance on A.J. Brown here by week 1 or gone by week 1?
Well, it hasn't really impacted. I still think he's going to be playing for another team come September. But it just goes to show you that Howie Roseman has a price, and he's sticking to it. Like he's not budging. He doesn't want to. He's going to tell everybody out there that he doesn't ever want to part with A.J. Brown, much less before the next season. He wants to keep him forever. He's going to have him move into a wing of his house at some point. He loves him so much. And he loves him so much that he's not parting ways unless he gets what he demands. And that's the way I look at this.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any kind of college hoops parlay you want. You want to pick a big underdog? You want to pick a huge favorite? There's plenty of options for you the next couple weeks. Then you apply that profit boost and instantly bump up your potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style. Now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. With Anthony Edwards out, Julius Randle led the way for the Timberwolves in a win over Devin Booker and the Suns. Locked On Wolves host Luke Inman and Jack Borman tell us how the rest of the squad stepped up with Ant sitting out.
Coming into this one, losers of 4 of your last 5, obviously desperately needed a win back at the Target Center. They start this 3-game homestand tonight. And this is just so Wolves, isn't it? Back against the wall, missing your superstar player in Anthony Edwards, which we'll get to here in a second. Playing a scrappy, tough Phoenix team with some playoff seeding on the line, obviously. And Jack, they come out and look, for the most part, we'll get into it, but pretty solid. Julius Randle, another big night statistically. Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels, big bounce-back performances tonight. And between that and then the bench just coming in and kind of adding a big spark with Bones Highland and his 22 points, that was the recipe for success. That's exactly what they needed, Jack. How important was this tonight, and what were your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, for sure. Huge night for the Wolves. Hard to overstate the importance of this win. Tonight, Minnesota is now 3 games clear of Phoenix for the number 6 seed. Even with Denver's playing Philadelphia, I think, tonight, and was up last time I checked. So keeping pace with them, which is important. I spoke about this on the squad show today with Barker and Julia and Sam. But that week of rest and preparation for the first round opponent is definitely the most important part of avoiding the play-in, especially when you consider that Ant is missing, potentially 10-ish days here with right knee inflammation. And that's before you consider that the Wolves would potentially be looking at playing either Steph Curry or Kawhi Leonard in a winner-take-all situation, both of whom guys you'd have nightmares about the night before that game. Getting into the game here, really nice to see the Wolves defense flex their muscle in the fourth quarter. I feel bad for the Suns. That's about as brutal of a back-to-back as you can possibly have,
No
going
doubt.
from Boston to Minneapolis. I'm sure the broadcast talked about that, but the Suns started the fourth quarter 1 of 11 from the floor, scored just 7 points in the first 7 minutes. And holding the Suns to just 104 points is awesome. I know that they didn't have Dylan Brooks and Mark Williams and Grayson Allen, but they've been third in offensive rating over the last 5 games. They've shot the just leather off the basketball, and so that's an offense too that is difficult to defend. And you saw it in the first part of the game. They've run a ton of ball screens, a ton of off-ball stuff too, just make you have to work defensively. And the Wolves really did that in the second half of this game. Yeah. So just real quick on Ant too.
Yeah.
So Ant's only has 57 qualifying games of the 68 or now 69 for the Wolves this season, because he played only 3 minutes in that one game that he got hurt. So the Wolves, Ant can only miss 5 more games. So if he misses a week, he's going to miss 3 more games. And if he misses 2 weeks, he'll have missed 6 more games and be ineligible for postseason awards. So, and then with Nas, obviously Nas got hurt. He always wears those low top Kobe's without any ankle braces or anything like that, and landed and rolled his ankle pretty badly. Tried to just fight through it, but Finch, I think, kind of saw that Nas just was not moving the right way and took him out in the fourth quarter of this game. I have to imagine that he will not play tomorrow night against Utah, considering that they're just tanking their faces off. But yeah, I wonder. I think you'll know more about Nas's status with Johan Berenjay, depending on if the Wolves recall him from his stint with the Iowa Wolves. He's been really good for them. 4 games in Iowa, 18 plus points, 11 plus rebounds in all 4 games. And then, just a couple of quick ones here. Really nice to see Randall play well, but especially Jayden had 16 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 stocks, really impactful, 0 turnovers. Great to see. Was excellent as usual on Devin Booker, held him to 11 of 27 shooting. 11 of Booker's 34 came at the free throw line. Bench was awesome. We'll get into them. 140-24. And then the ball movement, Luke, I thought, 28 assists, a great number for the Wolves considering where they've been at. 23 over the last 5, which is second worst in the league. And I think just the way that the Wolves kind of fought through this game, there were a lot of weird ticky-tack foul calls. I don't really talk much about the fouls and the officiating much on this show, but it just really disrupted the flow of the game with some of the calls that they were making both ways. I just didn't think they let the teams play enough. And so I think that kind of made it a little bit harder to settle into things. But overall, a fantastic win for the Wolves considering the circumstances and the stakes. And I think, again, really important to see, Io continue to play well. Julius, Jayden, and Bones we'll get into as well.
Yeah, felt like a total team victory there tonight. Going back to the assist, 25, again, great number. 18 against OKC last game as well. So huge improvement on that. Let's hand out some flowers with our player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Always interesting when he got no Ant to choose from. I mean, he usually wins this award, right? 2 out of 3 games. But, Julius Randle, obviously a great game here, 32 points, 7 and 2. But if you had to pick one here, Jack, Wolves game MVP, who is it and why?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with Bones Highland. And I think part of it is, kind of intangibles. Being here in the arena, I think it's very evident which guys I think get the most out of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And Bones Highland is certainly right at the top of that list with Anthony Edwards and Naz Reid. And I think how contagious his energy is and how much the crowd feeds off of what he does is so important. And I think, as we've seen this Timberwolves team really grow and evolve over the last few years and, kind of have more of a defensive mindset, and the crowd really just comes alive, and the defense really feeds off of that. I think you need guys that are going to put energy into the crowd and kind of pour the whole, douse the whole crowd with lighter fluid and just set the arena on fire. And Bones was absolutely that guy in this game. He had 22 points on 14 shots, was 4 of 8 from 3. 5 assists, had 3 turnovers. It was a little shaky with the ball at times, but was a team high plus 18. It felt like it. Like every time he came in the game, there was just a different energy and pace to the game, which was really important. I think his scoring just came in really consequential moments for the Wolves, especially in that first half. Had 15 points that were huge, and I think he and the bench kind of resuscitated the Timberwolves in that first quarter. The bench had 45 points in this game. I believe 40 points in this game, but the bench had 18 in the first quarter, and Bones was a huge part of that to kind of dig the Wolves out of what was a really porous start, especially in the defensive end of the floor. So I think again, it's really hard to put into words exactly what he does to the crowd here in the arena. I don't know how much that comes through on the broadcast, but this crowd loves Bones Highland, and this dude is going to make himself some serious change over the next couple weeks with Ant out, and then you consider hopefully getting into the playoffs and still maintaining a good role in the playoffs, because I mean, just how quickly he can score in bunches is really important, especially on a night like tonight when you see that Dante DiVincenzo goose egged it on 0 of 8 shooting. I think his scoring was even more consequential in this game. And I just think that the Wolves need to do everything that they can to continue to empower him and uplift him as a guy to just come in and be really aggressive as a scorer off the bench, because that's a role that's always going to play in the NBA, especially for a team that struggles with ISO ball and kind of getting bogged down and guys not being in a rhythm. So, and just an awesome dude too, like super engaging in the locker room. Anytime you ask him questions about anything, always willing to, speak on things from his perspective. I just think that, that's something too that I think everyone really appreciates about Bones, and he's fantastic. I think you also got to give a shout out here to Julius Randle. Deserves a ton of credit for what he did in the second half of this game. Felt kind of similar, Luke, to what he did on that Portland game a few weeks ago, where he was just, the whole offense was just get the ball to Julius and get the heck out of the way. In the second half of that game, this felt very similar to that. He had 19 points in the second half. It was 8 of 9 from the free throw line. I love that he's a dude that continually gets to the free throw line and actually makes his free throws, which is a joy to see as somebody that gets overly frustrated by that. But it just kind of felt like handing the ball to a running back and just running the clock out and just wearing down a defense with, physicality and brute force that was super needed in this game. And so for Julius Randle to finish with 32 points on the heels of 32-point performance against Oklahoma City was awesome. 64 points is more than he had in, I believe the previous 4 games combined. So for Randle to get back on the right track is huge. He's made 5 threes in the last 2 games. Obviously you want to see him not have an assist to turnover ratio of 0.3 like he did in this game with 2 assists to 6 turnovers. But I just think for him to have 64 points, 14 rebounds, get to the free throw line 21 times, and then shoot north of 60% across those 2 games is excellent. So really need him to keep it rolling too.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any kind of college hoops parlay you want. You want to pick a big underdog? You want to pick a huge favorite? There's plenty of options for you the next couple weeks. Then you apply that profit boost and instantly bump up your potential payout. Go safe. Go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style. Now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The Pistons got a win they expected over the Wizards last night, but may have suffered a big loss in the process. Cade Cunningham left the game with injury, and Ku Khalil tells us more on Locked On Pistons.
The Pistons lost Cade Cunningham very early in this game. The Pistons beat the Washington Wizards 130-117. Real quickly, I'll go ahead and get it out the way. We'll talk about Duren a little bit later, but like we talked about on the squad show with Lindsey Hunter earlier today, and if you haven't watched or listened to that, you guys definitely should go listen and tune in. But like we talked about earlier, this matchup, it's hard for us to really look at this matchup with the Wizards and view any type of big takeaway positive-wise, like any big like feel-good takeaway when you play the Washington Wizards. It really was just there was only something to lose for the Pistons. There was nothing really for them to gain. Them beating the Wizards wasn't really going to show us anything or make us feel, I'd say majority of us feel better about this team and how they've played against teams with a pulse since the All-Star break. So outside of Jalen Duren's monster game, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, the fact that the Pistons were able to just get this win, that you want to win, you don't want to lose. So that's the biggest story I potentially could even really take from this game. After the first quarter, the Pistons got a lot better defensively. In the first quarter, they allowed 32 points, and the Wizards were just getting anything they wanted. It looked like we were in for another rough defensive game from the Detroit Pistons. And then the second quarter, the way the Wizards started that quarter was pretty rough for the Pistons defensively as well. So after that point, though, they did get a little better defense. The Wizards ended up with 117 points. The defense at the end of the fourth quarter wasn't great either. Even in this win, the Pistons went through flows of playing good defense and still looking like the team since All-Star break that's been kind of all over the place defensively. And this was against a Wizards team that did not have Bilal Coulibaly. They didn't have Trae Young. They didn't have, obviously, Anthony Davis, but Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George. They were down a lot of guys, and even still the Pistons went through flows where they just weren't getting stops. We talked about this a little bit earlier, again, like I said, on the Locked On Pistons Squad show with Lindsey Hunter, and we asked him, like, is there, because there's a lot of people out there that are suggesting, like, a switch that can be turned on. Like, the Pistons, they're just trying to get to the end of the season, and, you know, when the playoffs come around, the games start mattering, the Pistons will go back to playing hard defensively. They'll go back to being that great defensive team. They'll flip the switch. And we asked Lindsey about that, and he was like, look, I don't know how you can say that a team can flip a switch when you don't know what it looks like to be on. Like, this team has not seen, you know, championship level basketball. This team has not won the championship. If you have a championship team that's like, hey, we know what it takes to win a championship, we'll flick it on when we need it to. Yeah, sure. But a team that's in the second year of just being a good basketball team without a playoff series win, saying that they can just take stretches throughout a season, especially towards the end, going into the playoffs, that they can just, you know, take stretches of just, you know, turning off the switch and then trying to turn it back on. He suggested that that's not something you should really be, one, believing in, and two, expecting out of this team. So I know they won this game, but I kind of come away still not feeling great about the fact that they weren't able to string together stops even against the Washington Wizards. The defense has to get back to what it was, and that's what I'm going to continue to talk about and continue to focus on until the playoffs, because that's the Pistons' only chance at going deep in the playoffs, is getting their defense back to where it was. And seeing them allow 16 threes to the Wizards, I mean, this is something we've seen since the All-Star break, where they just have not been able to stop teams from beyond the arc. They were one of the best teams in the NBA at this before the All-Star break, and since, it's just been a real struggle. I mean, Washington hit 16 threes on 43%. They shot overall nearly 50% from the field. I mean, they were very efficient, 61 true shot. The defense wasn't good in this game. Now, Washington's a bad team. They're a tanking team, and they're worse. They're worse defensively. So the Pistons were able to get up a lot of points. They ended up scoring 130. So it wasn't like I ever thought they were going to drop this game to the Wizards because of it. But I feel like you're still just seeing the lackadaisical defense and the inconsistent defense from this team. That's something we didn't see from this team throughout the first 3.5, 4 months of the season. So I don't know. I'm not even. They got the win. I'm still not feeling like super great about their defense. I'm honestly feeling the same. I don't know what's going on. But in this game, the bigger story is the fact that they lost Cade Cunningham in the first quarter of this game. He dove for a loose ball. At first, I was a little bit concerned because it looked like at the very end his knee might have buckled. I was worried, but you saw in the replay that he was grabbing like his rib cage area on the sideline. He ended up going back to the locker room, didn't come back out the locker room. They said he was out the rest of the game with back spasms. So after the game, JB did not have an update for anything with Cade. I assume we won't get an update until tomorrow or right before the next Wizards game on Thursday. This has been a real unfortunate stretch for the Detroit Pistons. Like, this has been the first 4 months of the year the season was fantastic, and it was absolutely a ton of fun, and there wasn't a lot that went against the Pistons the first 4 months of the season. And this kind of just illustrates to everyone that the NBA season is a very long season, and part of getting to the end of the season and part of having success is a lot of hard work, obviously. Consistency is big. Luck is a big part of it. You have to be lucky. And then obviously injuries. Like, you got to be lucky with injuries as well. And for the first 4 months or so, the Pistons really were in a good spot when it came to that. They didn't have really any like impactful like injuries really happening for long stretches. Guys missed a game here and there, but they were pretty good. And then over the last few weeks, you've seen Asar go down and miss a few games and come back, and he didn't look like himself in the first game back that the Pistons played. And I didn't think that, I mean, even in this game, he started to get a little bit more active in the fourth quarter. But still, even in this game, I feel like he was kind of just out there floating around. Like, he nowhere near was like as impactful as he was like before he got injured. He was all over the place. He was playing the best basketball maybe of the season before he got hurt. And these 2 games since coming back, he's just been kind of out there. So that isn't great. Wonder, like, how close is he to 100%? Like, how much of this is just him trying to get the defensive award availability? Then, after that, you get Stu, who goes down. And now Stu's out for another week. At the very least, he'll be reevaluated in another week. And this is a guy in Stu that we've seen deal with injuries throughout his career at the end of the season. And now, so you're dealing with your 2 best defenders who have went down and now are going to have to work themselves back to where they were before the playoffs. And now, on top of that, now Cade was out the rest of this game with back spasms. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think back spasms is like a super serious injury. But again, I'm not a doctor, so don't read anything into that. I mean, maybe it could be something that lingers on. Again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know about it really. But my ignorant opinion would be like, I don't think that's something super serious, but I don't know. The fact that this has just been a real unfortunate stretch. The Pistons haven't been playing their best basketball. Now they're dealing with injuries they've dealt with injuries to Asar, to Stu, now to Cade. It's like things are just, it's like one thing after another. And it's not, I bring this up and I'm frustrated, I guess is the best word, frustrated about it, because it's not about the Pistons winning 60 games this year. It's not about, I want them to go on a 10-game win streak. That's not what it is. It's you do not want to go into the postseason not playing your best basketball. You do not want to be the team that peaked early and going into the playoffs is just a steady downtrend. That's not the team you want to be. You want to be the team that's going into the playoffs playing well. Guys are healthy. Guys are at the peak of their shape, their peak of their play, and you're going in feeling good. The Pistons have another month until the playoffs start, so it could all just be fine. Like, everything could be fine. I understand that, but with how they've played as of late, since the All-Star break, you want to see them turn that around, but how are they really going to turn that around consistently if you're dealing with injuries to this guy, and then to that guy, and then to this guy? Then you have to give them 2 weeks to even get back to, where they were before the injury. I want this team to be clicking on all cylinders going into the playoffs, and not going into the playoffs like, all right, well, Cade just got back a week and a half ago. Does he have his rust knocked off yet? Is he like at the top conditioning wise? Like, does he feel good? How does Stu feel? Is Stu feeling good? Like, or is he going to need some time? Like, I don't want that to be the case. I want them to be coming back before the playoffs. I want them to be fixing this defensive stuff before the playoffs come around. And the final 2 weeks before they get to the playoffs, us saying, yeah, they went through a tough stretch at the beginning of March, but before the playoffs came around, they turned it around. They're feeling good. They're healthy, and we feel good about them going into the playoffs. And this is tough. So hopefully the news we get from Cade or about Cade in the next few days is positive. Main concern, all these guys need to be back at 100%. The Pistons need to be playing their brand of basketball, what we saw before the playoffs start. We need to see a stretch before the playoffs start so we can feel good about them once they get there. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on with Cade, hopefully tomorrow, but we know the Pistons aren't the most transparent with their injury, so we'll just have to wait and see.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late night shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any kind of college hoops parlay you want. You want to pick a big underdog? You want to pick a huge favorite? There's plenty of options for you the next couple weeks. Then you apply that profit boost and instantly bump up your potential payout. Go safe. Go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style. Now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The 76ers had to go into Denver without Joel Embiid last night, and it didn't go well. Denver destroyed Philly, and the guys over at Locked On Nuggets have the recap.
They annihilated. They just killed this team. And the poor Sixers, it was, no Maxey, no Embiid, no Paul George. They did not have a real, no Kelly Oubre even. No chance. And this is always a bad spot for East Coast teams. Usually, Andre Drummond in particular does not play well here. He's never played well. I've seen Andre foul out, get ejected, or get benched almost every single time. And he actually couldn't get it done tonight and had to play. And you could tell he was miserable doing it because I think he's got a lung thing that makes the altitude really difficult. He's one where the 5,283 feet actually does make a difference with him. They couldn't hit from three. They missed everything, but the Nuggets flew around. This was a complete effort from start to finish by your Denver Nuggets, Ryan.
It was good to see. Every time you're in this situation, and I'm not going to put any like long-standing like, oh, the Nuggets are back. The Nuggets are doing like this was just a part of the steps, a part of the process in terms of, hey, you go through a couple tough losses. Now you're back on the grind. Now you're back on figuring out, okay, what is the most important way to win in situations like these? It is purely play hard, play with efforts. Get back to the basics, do everything you need to do in order to excel in these kinds of situations, especially for a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, who are at a very clear talent disadvantage in this one. The Nuggets did a lot of great things. I was very impressed with their approach and their execution.
Nikola Jokic with 8 points tonight. I'm sure that there are probably some people who aren't happy about that. I'm not sure who or why, as Joker only had to play 27 minutes as he finishes with 8 points, 7 rebounds, 14 assists to 5 turnovers, had 14 dimes, got out in transition. That was something that David Adelman kind of singled out as like a really positive thing that he was able to contribute. Joker did all the Joker things without having to score, which that's always a good thing.
Always a good thing. We thought it might be an early night for Joker with the technical that he racked up right at the end of the first quarter there. But if I'm not mistaken, that is his first technical of the season. If not the first, then it's very, very short in terms of the number of technicals that he's actually had. But he did a nice job. He didn't have to score in any way, shape, or form. He was just diming up. He was very happy doing exactly that. Thought he played well on both ends of the floor and was a nice quarterback for what the Nuggets needed in this particular game, while everybody else had it going and they just wanted to get off and to go to the races.
So I've talked before about like, well, you know, the Nuggets like lost in clutch time, but they actually lost it in this first quarter when they came out, blah, blah, blah. The Nuggets won this game in the first quarter. It was a 140.7 offensive rating in the first quarter to an 84.6 defensive rating.
Good.
That's it.
Pretty
And
good.
you know, they got to the hot start, and I was like, okay, we'll see what happens when the bench comes in. And then the bench carried it through and expanded the lead. And that was when I was like, okay, all right, here we go.
I 100% agree with that, by the way. It wasn't just the fact that they got off to the great start. It was that it continued and the bench then had that first great stint. They also had a great second quarter overall, but it started with that bench unit that we can certainly talk about. But Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson staggering, Spencer Jones, Jonas Valanciunas, all 5 of them I thought had excellent games.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked a lot about the stagger, which I think that's like a small note that I looked over and told you and Vinny Benedetto this. I think that's maybe the key here is Jamal doesn't have to stagger when they face teams that they are going to beat. Right? Like if it's an outmatch opponent, you can play Cam with the bench and be fine.
Yeah.
If you're facing a quality opponent, you'll have Jamal stagger. Now, I don't think Jamal stagger makes a big of a difference versus like the elite squads that stagger their best players. I don't think it really helps, but you're not going to stagger Joker and you can't let it get too bad. So you could do what you did tonight and it worked out great. Christian Brown, 22 points tonight to lead the way for the Nuggets, plus 21 in his minutes, 22, 5 and 3, 7 and 9 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3-point range, knocked down that first corner 3. And that was a really positive sign for him. 18 points for Cam Johnson as he goes 6 of 8 from the field and 3 of 3 from 3-point range. Cam had 2 rebounds. He was involved in about 7 different important rebound situations. Cam was just very active tonight.
It's why and I think this is a correct opinion to have. It's not necessarily about the number. It's about whether your team gets the actual board itself. That's the most important thing. rebound within your area, box out your guy, make sure that you're following principles and things like that. I think it's a very salient point, and it's one of the reasons why Cam Johnson is such a helpful basketball player. And he's not just doing it as a scorer; he's doing it in a variety of different ways. I thought he had a couple of other great defensive slides tonight, some really good possessions, just keeping his man in front of him, which is such an underrated thing in defense, especially when you're trying to protect the rim and Jokic is the backline center. So keep your man in front of you, and everything turns out to be really easy.
And Cam, after the game, kind of talked about, Adelman talked about not overthinking things and just making the play. But Cam, I'm like, I'll just continue to tell you, as much as like that seems to be how he's playing. Cam after the game was still kind of like, look, it's yes, it's about making the decision and not overthinking it. He was like, but it's also about just knowing where I need to be, so I'm not unsure. It's about understanding the windows and how to play with these guys. He's like, it does take time. It took time for me. He's like, and I just think Cam's really thoughtful and insightful after games. And so, like, he talked a lot about the windows. I talked to him a little bit about, he was making such quick decisions, especially on what's called the L pass. That's how I've learned it. Is okay. So if they're fronting, you kick it to the side, and then you got a different entry pass angle. And it was like immediate. It wasn't like they passed it to Cam and then Cam looks and then passes. It was boom, boom, 2 trigger. And then the ball was into Jokic, slip into the basket. And that breaks that. That's a good way to break that. They tried a lot of stuff tonight. That is like, hey, what does this look like if we do this? Like, they were pressing a little bit. They were running some modifications of full court press.
Yeah.
And the Sixers eviscerated it and broke it and scored on Jokic every time. But
really funny.
They worked on it.
It wasn't just Jokic. I will say the first possession was Aaron Gordon raising his hand because he got himself out of position. And then obviously it would be a little bit different if you have Rudy Gobert back there and then rotating over on the weak side, but you don't have Rudy Gobert back there.
No, you do not have Rudy Gobert back there. Jokic, I did not think that Jokic like had fun tonight. Joker seemed very much like a guy that was like, I'm here to do the work. I just want to do the work and go home.
I mean, this is the game to feel that way, right? Like, you were gonna potentially play against Joel Embiid. You have another game tomorrow in which that one you have to be very much ready for. You want to get done with this one so that you can be good for the next one. And I can understand that mentality, even if it's not like super endearing for the joy of it and the fun of it all.
Yeah, I'm not, it's not a criticism. I just like, that was just like an observation of what it is. Like,
No,
Joker.
I think you're completely right.
Joker had 14 assists. He should do whatever he wants. They were plus 14 in his minutes. So yeah, solid game by pretty much everybody. My favorite passer tonight was actually Jamal. Jamal had 4 assists, but had a lot of passes to Joker that wound up leading to other, it was trigger mechanism. It was a great pass by Jamal to Nikola, who then made a pass to someone else.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of absolutely just slick passes. Like, go back and watch the clips and you're just going to find so many great passes that Jamal was able to make. And then Joker made his usual array of amazing passes. So I just thought Jamal's passing tonight was phenomenal. Jamal only 12 points. Like, Joker and Jamal combined for 20 points, and they absolutely blew out the Sixers. That's a great win.
Great sign. The one pass I know that I have in my head tonight from Jamal, there was a bounce pass that he had on the left, left elbow, left wing area that he threads through the needle, through 2 different Sixers defenders. It gets to Joker, and obviously there's a backline defender that has to rotate, and it turns into a 3. It's exactly what you want. That's a pass that Jamal may not have been able to make before, that as he continues to get better in his overall game, he's making it regularly now, and it's really cool to see.
That's all for today's Big 6 and 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 and 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 and 30 NBA, the Big 3 and 30 NFL, or the Big 3 and 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.